Hey guys, welcome back to The Binger. Godzilla vs. Kong is set to smash into theaters in late 2020. There's no better time than now to take a look back at decades of kick-butt kaiju culture and how the king of monsters has evolved over the years. From 1954's whale-like first design to 1998's Hollywood treatment, this is one big fella you wouldn't want to meet in a dark alley. Let's dive in. Where would we be today without 1954's Godzilla? Well, probably somewhere else talking about something different, right? Wouldn't that be a shame? We love the enormous king of the monsters, but he started out looking a little different than he does today. In their original drawings, designers had Godzilla looking more like a whale than a dinosaur with a mushroom-shaped head. Thankfully, it was decided that this was a little too close to the giant cloud over Hiroshima. As it was less than a decade since that happened, the idea was reworked and the monster became much more dinosaur-like than before. Designers used parts of an iguanodon, a stegosaurus, and a tyrannosaurus on the rubber suit. His total height was billed at 164 feet, or 50 meters. For Godzilla actor Haruo Nakajima, 1964 ushered in a very exciting change. By this point, it was 10 years since the original suit had been designed. For Mothra vs. Godzilla, designers made sure the entire getup was much lighter than it had been previously. This allowed Nakajima to move more easily, but this wasn't the most important element. The suit had reinforced heels in the feet, meaning that Nakajima could finally flip and jump to his heart's content. This added a whole new aspect into the movie and opened doors for the character that had been previously closed. Ah, the 60s. Don't you just love that hip-swinging Godzilla-breeding decade? Aside from these changes, Godzilla's height remained the same, proving that size doesn't always matter. Let's keep hopping through the decades like Mothra on a cloud. In 1975, producers decided to go down a different route. Instead of staying with the scary, seat-gripping franchise they had created, they decided to shake things up a little. One of the ways they did this was by giving all the kaiju these bright, big anime eyes. This might sound a little weird, but it worked as the monsters seemed less frightening and more lovable. For movie makers, it was a dream come true, as this helped make Godzilla appeal to the masses. They weren't pigeonholed into the adult market anymore, they could expand and dig their teeth into the younger markets too. Figuratively, of course. They saved the actual biting for the monster. As the years skipped by and 1984 rolled around, the kitsch feel of the kaiju monsters was getting a little tired. The idea had worked to open the audience, but it was time to get back to Godzilla's roots. This is the king of the monsters, not the host at Chuck E. Cheese. Designers wanted to get him back on top as the true master of horror, so they made him bigger than ever before. Zilla went from 164 feet to 262 feet, but the biggest came in his attitude. This was Godzilla on steroids. Suddenly, he was impulsive, antagonistic, and liked destroying things. His new mean streak was allegedly supposed to represent the fear and dangers of nuclear radiation. This is a monster that was born out of the tragedy, so it made perfect sense. As if things couldn't get any more outlandish in the kaiju universe, writers decided to up the ante in 1994 with Godzilla vs. SPACEGODZILLA. This movie basically did what it said on the tin, pitting the interstellar version of the monster against little Godzilla and his pop OG Godzilla. Yes, it's a nerd's dream. We're into it. In order to distinguish Godzilla from his counterparts, designers made him stockier and amped up his height to 328 feet. His son also got a little makeover with a distinctly more cartoony appearance. That's a whole lot of Godzilla. Heavenly. Or should we say, otherworldly. What's that, Timmy? Godzilla's heart is going into nuclear meltdown and the entire Earth is at risk. Yep, you heard that right, folks. In 1995's Godzilla vs. DESTROYAH, Zilla is having some serious internal problems that Tums can't cure. As a result of his entire body starting to implode, Godzilla was shown glowing. More than his impressive strength, incredible height, and general monsterness, this made him all-powerful. Sadly, Godzilla does perish in the end and absolutely destroys Tokyo in the process. By 1998, Godzilla was already established as one of the legendary icons of cinema. Naturally, that meant that he got the Hollywood treatment. CGI was fast becoming the new way to get things done. So when Roland Emmerich signed on to direct, he envisioned something modern audiences could get down with. Instead of following on from the slew of movies that came before, Emmerich decided to start from scratch. Instead of sticking close to the original, movie makers went for something different. This Godzilla was sleeker, more agile, and remarkably more powerful, even though he's considerably shorter than his predecessors at 180 feet. Fans weren't impressed, and felt Toho's legacy was disrespected. As a result, the Japanese version was released as Zilla to try and create some distance between the original works and this reimagining.
I think I lost him.
Perhaps to fly straight in the face of the American outing the year prior, 1999's Godzilla 2000 Millennium was Toho's reboot. Considered a direct sequel to the original 1954 movie, Godzilla himself was decreased to the original size of 164 feet. However, this is the only thing about him that got smaller. The spines going across his tail increased in both size and numbers, as did Godzilla's sheer ferocity. Director Takao Okawara wanted to stay close to the original concept while also making the monster deadlier and more threatening. He was back with a vengeance, and in a way that didn't rely on Matthew Broderick for star power. We all know who the real MVP is. (2001's outing was another direct sequel to the original, but it went down an entirely different path. This time, our main man was possessed by the souls of World War II soldiers. Notably, Godzilla's height remained the same, but the figures of all the other monsters were reduced to try to make Zilla look bigger than he was. As he was possessed, the king's eyes were yellow, giving off an eerie look miles away from the black and white audiences were used to. The changes to Godzilla's form in this outing were few, but just enough to give him an edge. This time, his tail extends further and is held slightly above the ground, making him seem ready to pounce at a moment's notice. Prior to this, Zilla's tail just dragged along behind him like a dead weight, so it was nice to see it with some buoyancy. Never one to leave a profitable concept well enough alone, Hollywood decided to take another stab at Godzilla in 2014.
We call him Godzilla.
This time, the movie was better received. Makers took note of all the criticism from the 1998 version, meaning Godzilla took on a look similar to the original. He was also given a boost to 492 feet high, making him the largest Godzilla ever seen on screen. The Hideaki Anno-directed picture featured a Godzilla that was miles away from the Toho version. He was absolutely terrifying, with small arms and a huge tail. You wouldn't want to mess with this guy. Over the course of the movie, Godzilla evolves. At first, he appears as a red monster before he goes into the sea and comes out twice the size. The best part? He can fire atomic blasts from his mouth and his dorsal plates, making him a double threat. If that's not impressive, what is? Just because this movie is animated doesn't mean that it's not worth mentioning. In fact, the scope for what creators could do with the monster turned out to be unlimited. This movie was Toho's first try at a cartoon Godzilla, and it also marked their 32nd Godzilla feature. To celebrate, they gave Godzilla a brand new height, because everyone knows bigger is better. The king towered at 984 feet tall, marking the largest that he has ever been. Every other aspect of the monster was enhanced and made to be bigger and better than ever before, which works really well on screen. Godzilla King of the Monsters didn't pack the same punch that Hollywood's 2014 Godzilla did, but there are a couple of things it improved on. The monsters were off the hook. Michael Dougherty decided to look back at the 1954 movie and adapt that design by adding in the dorsal plates and making the claws and feet bigger. This made him more ruggedly handsome and ready to kick some butt, but his actual height was never changed. Although the movie wasn't a box office hit, there is a third one in the works. Godzilla vs. Kong is set to make its way to theaters in 2020. And will most likely feature a very similar looking Godzilla to this 2019 version as little time has passed. There you have it. What do you think? Do you have a favorite? Let us know in the comments. Before you go, be sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a big thumbs up. See you soon!